Good evening, everyone, and a big welcome back to our European Sports Leadership and Coaching Network. This is our second series and the second webinar in this series. My name is Vicky Heighton. For those of you that don't know, I'm the founder of the Female Coaching Network. The European Network is a project run by the FCN, and it aims to bring together women from across Europe and beyond to come together to discuss the wonderful ins and outs of being a female leader or a coach in sport. We want this network to be a supportive platform for all of you, where you can connect with others, share your own experiences, and of course, listen to other people's experiences and advice to help you develop in your own career. So as I said, throughout the webinar, please feel free to share contact details between you all in the chat box. So just before I welcome the wonderful Jane to our evening, I'm going to pass you over to Anna, who's just going to introduce herself and explain to those who don't know how the format of this evening will work.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I feel like there's already so many familiar faces that I have to mix up my introduction from now on because it's just going to keep rehearing the same thing. So my name is Anna. I met Vicky during my sports master in Amsterdam, where I saw her in a meeting that we had also on Zoom. Came up with this, where we said, okay, let's just create a network for women to come together and share their experiences. And yeah, I have my background in sports as well, in football, to be precise. Currently doing a bit something different from my professional career. But yeah, my heart is in sports, and that's why I'm happy to be here with all of you. For tonight, I think Vicky already mentioned it. If you have a question, you can raise your hand on the reactions button. If you want, you can actually raise it virtually. You can also raise it physically, and we will see it. You can just speak up, ask a question, however you feel comfortable. That should work. That's all from my side.
Great. Thanks, Anna. Okay, so on to the introduction for our guest, which I'm super excited about. Somebody who I've wanted to speak to for a long time and who just keeps going from strength to strength. And I know you are super busy. So once again, Jane, thank you for joining us. I'd like to welcome this evening our guest, Jane Figueirdo. For those of you who are British sports fans, you may know Jane as the coach of British diver Tom Daley, who won gold at Tokyo over this summer with his partner Matty Lee, as well as a bronze medal. He is it fourth Olympic Games he went to, and finally he got his well-deserved gold medal. Yeah. In addition to Tokyo, Tom has also won 2 other Olympic bronze, 3 gold, a silver, and 2 bronze at world level, and 5 gold and 3 silver at European level. Hopefully that's correct, Jane. I've not missed any major ones out there. Before coming over to the UK, Jane was the head diving coach at the University of Houston, winning 12 consecutive Conference Diving Coach of the Year honors, 4 NCAA Diving Coach of the Year awards, as well as many other athletes winning NCAA championship. So I think it's fair to say Jane has had a very successful coaching career. So once again, huge thank you to Jane. We're going to kickstart with a few questions from me, perhaps Anna, a few questions from you. And then throughout the evening, if anybody else would like to ask Jane a question, as Anna has said, please raise your hand either physically or virtually. Jane, before we get started with the questions, is there anything else you want to kind of add to that short introduction I gave of you?
Firstly, I'd really like to thank you so much for having me. I was supposed to be on a couple of months ago, and I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, one thing I'll just add is that, it never stops. You never stop trying to be successful. You're always learning every day. So even though Tom is so accomplished, and it may seem from the outside that I'm very accomplished, but in my little world, it seems like I'm always trying to continue to raise the bar, continue to learn, and continuing to find ways to be better personally and professionally. So I think for all those wonderful women out there that are on the ladders up, it's like your whole life you're doing that.
Jane, I'm going to go straight in at the deep end, excuse the pun. And I'm going to ask you about your experience at Tokyo. And one of my favorite things to watch during Tokyo was when the cameras cut from your divers to you and watched your reaction, firstly, as to how well the dive was. From somebody who does not know diving, I couldn't judge the dive until the camera went to you to see if it was a good one or not. And then obviously when Tom and Matty got the gold, just seeing you jumping up and down and your reaction was just like, it actually brought a tear to my eye. It was beautiful things to watch. So talk to us about that moment when you watched Tom and Matty get that gold.
Yeah, I don't think you actually ever, I think you dream about those moments, but you never, like Tom says, you never actually think that it's going to become a reality. So you're always, you're not really sure whether it's real or not. That's probably our first reaction. Because I remember that moment, we were, I think, before the Chinese, and we were at that point just glad we had secured a silver medal. So our excitement was that we were on the podium. So, and then it wasn't till after when they showed us sort of three of us standing together. And I remember Tom, he's so great. He looks up at the scoreboard and he goes, Jane, they can get us. And I was like, what? Like, I hadn't even thought about that. It didn't matter to me. We were on the podium. That's all that mattered. And he said, no, I think they can get us. And I said, oh, are they going to get us for the silver? He said, no, are they going to get us for the gold? And I was like, what? And we were standing there and he could calculate. He always used to be able to calculate how many points they needed, whoever was trying to beat us. So that's why we were all standing there. We were whispering to each other. And he said, oh, they dove. And he goes, oh, that was quite good, Jane. And I said, okay, but it doesn't matter. We're going to still get the silver. And then I looked up and he said, he started screaming and I didn't really know what was going on. And then they said, oh my God, we won the gold. And that's when I started jumping like a crazy person. But I am quite crazy. I'm not sure where it comes from because my mom and dad are not that crazy, but I don't know. It's a very difficult thing to subdue yourself. And I'm that way whether the guys are first, second, third. I probably won't jump that excitedly if we're fourth, but I'm normally quite animated and I don't know how to be anything but that. So Tokyo was amazing. I think the fact, I know most people probably can't believe this to be true, but it is. I think the pandemic, as bad as it was for the rest of the world and our training, but it actually helped us stay focused. And with Tom being such a famous person, I'd been going on for about 8 years for him to just rest and take it easy. And do you have to go to that event? And do you have to be on the red carpet over there? And can't you just stay home? So his lifestyle up until that point never was like that. So the pandemic actually worked in my favor because he couldn't go anywhere. So his recovery was amazing. He got to spend a lot of time with his family, which he normally wouldn't get to do. And then he started knitting because he was bored. So the whole knitting thing became such a big thing in Tokyo. It was Tom the knitter, actually, not Tom the diver. So no, it was fantastic. Yeah, it really, to this day, it's a surreal moment.
It's so nice to see a coach at your level reacting like that because, when you think about most of the sport we see on TV, and if we get clips of the coaches, like say football coaches in the UK, screaming, shouting, and it's just really nice to see how how emotional you get and how much you care. And I think that really adds to the whole story of Tom, really, I think, to see you like that.
Yeah, it's, like I said to you, I grew up in an amazing environment. I grew up in Zimbabwe. The sun was always shining. I had amazing people around me. And I think, it's about just, I know people say, well, when you're winning, you're having fun. And that's true. When you're losing, you're not really having much fun. But I think it's just about the whole journey. And it can't just be about the result. And I think coaches miss that whole thing about trying to like really engage in the relationship you have with your athletes. And then more importantly, they're going to be your friends the whole rest of your life. And I think that's something coaches forget. Like the relationships you have with your athletes are lifetime relationships. They're not just when I leave London and I go on my weary way that I won't ever be in touch with Tom again. I mean, look, I'm living in his place, and you know, I love being around him. He brings so much energy, and he makes me better, and so does Matty. All of them, all those kids are mine. But I think you have to put yourself out there. You have to open yourself up. You have to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable is really just. Hopefully they love you for who you are and just not a result.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to come on to Tom in a minute, but one last question about Tokyo. Obviously, it was a strange Olympic Games, and as you said, there were definitely some positives with the lead up and what have you. Was there anything particular that stood out to you that was a challenge at Tokyo that might have been different than other Olympic Games?
Yeah, certainly. The mask wearing was very, very difficult. I can't remember, maybe all your guests can tell me, but in the swimming pool, to wear a mask under those sort of conditions in a pool that's very hot and humid, and you're sweating a lot, and that's why I'm hoarse most of the time, is because I've got to project my voice all the way across the pool. So you've got that to begin with, and then you have to wear a mask. And I honestly think for 3 weeks of wearing a mask every single day in those kind of conditions, and then they couldn't hear me most of the time, and they'd have to come over and listen to you, and you'd have to sort of sneak your mask down and say, you know, I told you to do that. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge mostly was wearing a mask and just, it was very, very frustrating.
So on to Tom then. Obviously, you've alluded to it was quite handy with the pandemic because he wasn't allowed to go out anywhere, and you could kind of, you know, keep a bit more control on how he was recovering, etc.
Yeah.
But obviously you've coached him more than just this last couple of years. Am I right in saying it was just after Beijing, or was it for Beijing that you were coaching him?
I started coaching him in around October of 2013.
Right.
When he came to visit me in Houston to try to persuade me to move to London.
And he did a good job of it.
He did a great job because he came twice, and both times I told him no chance.
Wow.
You know, Texas is sort of like Africa. It's warm, it's hot all year round. I had been living there for nearly 30 years. Only a Tom Daley could convince me to move to London. And my mum's British. She lives up in Scotland. So, yeah, I had family. And then, of course, Tom came along. And I think I had achieved pretty much everything I thought I could achieve in the college system. And I was coaching Russian women who won gold in 2000, and then several other medals. But Tom Daley, like most special athletes, only come around very, very seldom. So he came to train with me, and I just remember he was there for 2 weeks. He actually said, well, I'm coming over to see you tomorrow. He was in Orlando. And I said, oh, tomorrow? I said, where are you going to stay? He said, well, I'm going to stay with you. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, can I come and stay with you? And I was like, okay, I guess you can. So he came and stayed at my house for 2 weeks. And yeah, he just blew me away. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, he was very fun, very exciting, very dynamic. Yeah, he was fantastic.
Amazing. So how has the journey been with him? Because as you know, as we all know, he's not just a normal diver. He's got the celebrity status. And again, for those people, British sports fans, we've literally seen him grow up from 5, 6, 7 years of age. And we've kind of followed the trials and tribulations of going through his teens and, you know, the really sad loss of his dad when he was so young, down to being a YouTuber with millions of followers. And so he's almost not just a normal celebrity. Like, he has all these different things that I wonder if people almost feel like they really know the real Tom because they've seen him on the TV for so long. So yeah, how on earth do you deal with that as a coach, as well as him being such an elite?
I drink a lot. No, I'm kidding. You know, it's quite an interesting thing if you have a lot of coaches online. Your athletes, as well as you yourself, you sort of change over the years. So you think that you know yourself, and you think you come into a situation like this with Tom. And every year, you know, he changes as I do. And so we're sort of changing together in an extremely positive way. So I'll give an example of what I mean. I think I was quite stubborn. So in other words, if I wrote up a workout, I was quite adamant that that's the workout you're going to do. And Tom really taught me to be quite flexible. So for example, it doesn't only have to be done that way. And because he had so much going on, some days we couldn't really follow through with the workout that I wanted to do. And it was just about not being so stubborn in myself that I could be more flexible. And then as he got older, I had to be even more flexible because his body was aging gracefully and he wanted to train a different way. He didn't just want to do a lot of repetitions. He needed me to trust him that if he did less, actually that could be more. And that was really hard because I had worked with Russian women, like I said, and they did more and more and more and more. But that was a cultural thing. They grew up just the more the better. Whereas in the British culture and American culture, more is not always better. And he sort of taught me how to do that, how to be more flexible. And it was okay. Don't panic, Jane. I got this. You know, the number of times I heard, Jane, don't panic. I got this. And sometimes he ain't got it. But we had to go through those ups and downs of, well, we ain't got it. We haven't got it. So you're going to listen to me next time. Okay, I'm going to listen to you next time. So yeah, the celebrity status, that was obviously something I didn't, how can you prepare for that?
Yeah.
You know, I had girls that were Olympic champions and he had only won a bronze medal by the time I met him. And they were like, he came to Houston and my girls walked in and they were like, what are all these people doing here? And I was like, well, that's Tom's fans. And they were like, what? And they would say to him, but you don't even have a gold medal. You know, and he was so embarrassed because he was like, I know, I've only got a bronze. These are my crazy fans. And they would come from everywhere to come watch him train. We actually had to shut off the balcony because people in America were nuts about him. So that was the beginning. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I can probably manage that. But wow. Yeah, it was, I know Tom like the diver, and I'm really just starting to get to know Tom, the famous celebrity. And I think that for me is kind of really interesting. And it's like being a parent, you know, you see your child change and you're like, well, actually, this is okay. Like I went to the Team GB ball with him the other night. And of course, it was a black tie affair. So, you know, most of us, we take black tie seriously. We go in black, and not him. He comes in red. I don't know if anybody saw the pictures. He like a red suit, about that red, with high heels, 6-inch, and he blew everybody away. And I was just like, oh my God. And it was so awesome because there are athletes there with 4 gold medals, 5 gold medals, 6 gold medals. And he's got 1, but yet he is the star of the show. Mm. And yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And I'm going to pass you to Anna in a second, but I guess just on that, on the flip side of Tom being super famous, you're the complete opposite in the fact of if anybody has ever Googled Jane, it's really hard to find any information out about Jane. You haven't even got a Wikipedia page.
No, I know. Tom keeps saying to me, Jane, when are you going to get your Wiki? I'm like, what? Wicca who? You know, I think that's the great thing about a star athlete is we're happy as the support staff to just sit and admire him and Matty and just sort of relish in our own satisfaction of, wow, you know, they're actually pretty awesome. So, yeah, I mean, that's just part of it. Any famous athlete, you hear very little about the coach, but all I need to hear from him is that he loves me and he appreciates me, and that's all. I don't need any of the other stuff.
Amazing. Anna, would you like to ask any questions?
Where did he got the heels from?
Dior. You can't imagine.
It's good to know, but it wasn't actually the question. But now I'm actually glad that I'm just going to write it down.
Hey, you know, Tom will be mad that I say this, but in his whole diving career that I've known him, when you ask him, Tom, how tall are you? He'll say, oh, I'm 5'9 3/4. And actually, he's only barely 5'9. And he wants so badly to be 6 foot. So the other night when he wore those heels, I was like, you're so desperate to be 6'3", 6'4", that the only thing you could do is get some heels.
Very nice. No, what I actually wanted to ask you is basically, so if there's any difference, what the difference is between you coaching a college program in the US and coaching a Olympic program in the UK?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because it's quite simple. One is non-professional. So what I mean by that is they're more of a student first and then an athlete and then, you know, everything else that comes after that. Whereas when you coach in a country like Great Britain, where it's all funded by public money, they are traditionally professional athletes. So both have pros and cons. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. And the reason for that is I worry in the UK when you're funding athletes so young, they come out of high school, maybe they have A-levels, maybe they have GCSEs, and here you don't hear a lot of them going to university. And that I worry about that because diving has a certain shelf life. Whereas in the States, at least if you don't succeed in diving, you get a degree and you can go on and get a great job. And I think what happens in the UK, I have a ton of athletes. We have 16. And right now, only 3 of them are in university. And I just think that that's a danger. And only because what are they going to do afterwards? They can't be. There's only one diver that I'm aware of, Tom Daley, who actually can make a career out of diving, whereas everybody else will be poor. I mean, the highest amount of money you can make as a UK, and you have to be a medalist at the Olympics, is 27,000. Well, I mean, you can't buy an apartment in London for 27,000. So I worry about education, and that's the biggest difference. That's the biggest difference. One is all the way professional. They leave school, they become professional divers. And then the other one is, if you don't make it in diving, you go on and lead a regular life, a normal life, and get a job as, like, the majority of the world.
How do you do you even communicate it? And if you do, how do you communicate it to a young athlete without crushing their dreams, saying, because I know it from football as well. So I know that there is not women, obviously, because where I come from, you still have to study and work if you want to be a female football athlete. But for the boys, or for the men especially, they join a club. They are really good. Yeah. Not all of them can be professional. Not all of them can make a living out of it, but they drop out of school because they want to be professional football players. And I feel like there's not enough communication around that the coaches, for example, speak with the players saying, okay, you can still do both, but you need to do both because you never know what's going to happen. Yeah. So do you communicate it? And if yes, how?
Yeah, I mean, because I came out of the US system, I think it would be really unfair for me not to encourage them to at least, try to go to university. It's tough in this country to go to university and do what Tom does. It's next to impossible, but it still can be done if you, go to school at the sort of maybe like right after Olympic Games, where you have a couple of years where you don't really have to go full-time diving. But I always encourage, I think it's coach-led. The coaches have to lead this and say, you know what, you got to do something outside of diving. You can't just come to the pool and, not stimulate your brain and try to get some knowledge while you're doing diving. And some of them are, look, Matty, he started a interior design course, and now he's on the I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. But every opportunity, and he said, can I do the show, Jane? And I said, okay, well, how long is it for? He said, well, it's about 5 weeks. And I said, well, are they going to pay you a lot of money? Because he can't sit out of training for 5 weeks. And he said, well, if I do the show, I can hopefully put a down deposit on a house. I said, okay, go ahead and do the show, because he's got to do something. I mean, where is he going to live if he doesn't do something like that? It's not ideal, but it's, you have to choose the pros and cons. We have in UK sport, we have a lifestyle person who comes and tries to encourage all our athletes to get a job, to do something part-time. So I'm happy to say that we have a diver that left and's gone to Stanford on a full scholarship. We have a diver next year who's going to Duke University on a full scholarship. So my high performance director may not be happy with me, but I have to do justice for my kids. And so I will encourage them to do what's best for them in their lives, and not just sit around a pool and hope somebody's going to come along and give you a great job someday. So we encourage our kids to go to university in the States, and try to do the whole thing, try to do the whole package. But it has to come from the coach, and the coach must not be afraid to, because the high performance director could come knocking on your door and say, why are you, why are you encouraging all our kids to leave Great Britain? But actually, I think if they're happy, they'll come back and be better.
I think that the athletes will come back to you at some point and thank you for it. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, well, and if they don't, that's okay too.
I'm gonna give over to Vicky again because I think you have another question.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask one more question and then I'm going to stop hogging Jane because I know that other people are going to want to ask. So Jane, it's really obvious that a big part of your coaching philosophy, if that's the right word, is to care for your athlete. That's obvious in how you are in celebrating and how you are describing your relationship with Tom. And I was watching a podcast that you did, I say last year before the summer, and it was about love as a coaching strategy, and you were with one of your athletes, Yulia, and it was all about the balance between caring and loving your athlete and showing them love, but then pushing them when they need to be pushed. So how does that work out? What are your strategies for that?
Yeah, that's a tricky balance, because although I might be gun-ho about going in there and showing them love and doing whatever, doesn't always mean that they're going to reciprocate. So some of them, you get a good feel for whether they're up for that or not up for that. Believe it or not, my boys, all of the men that I coach, and we've got 7 of them, they are all about the love and being open and honest and transparent. And it's so amazing. I know most women would probably go, oh, men can't show much love. But they are, yeah. And I think they appreciate that I'm so open. And I always hug them, and I always, give them a pat on the back and we high five. Whereas my girls, they're a little bit different. And I'm not sure why that is. But it's okay, because I try to take each one of them individually. I might go have a coffee with them and try to open up more individually, whereas the boys are happy to show that, without you having to go get coffee. So I think there's a little bit of difference. How do I balance that? Well, I get a good idea pretty much when they first come to me, whether they hold themselves, with an arm's length, or they're just happy to talk about anything. So I think you got to, you pretty much got to gauge how they are. You can't do one size fits all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Yulia, she won 5 medals. She is just an outstanding female athlete, probably one of the best women athletes in the world in her sport. And she struggled to find that balance of Jane kicking my butt and making me, get after what I needed to do. And then when she was having a tough time, like just hugging her and saying it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. So I think she talked about that, like just, you have to know when to kick them in the butt, and then you have to also know when to just back off and not be all up, in their business.
That makes sense. I'm going to move on to Esther for the question. I'm going to out a fellow Zimbabwean, Tracy Archer over here. I thought I was going to mention it before. Hey, fellow Zimbabwean.
Hi, Jane. Lovely to hear from you. To hear a familiar accent as well, even though you've been out of home for a long time.
I know.
Still there.
Well, actually, most people said when I moved to London that I sounded more African than I did American, because when I first came, the American accent was quite strong. But yeah, no, it's nice to meet you, Tracy.
You too.
Sorry, Tracy. Esther, you've got your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi. My question is.
Hi, Esther.
Hi, nice to meet you. Really interested in hearing your how you build your relationships with your athletes, and how that is such an important part of your coaching. And I just wonder, diving seems to be one of those sports where you're always chasing perfection and where you're having to deal with so much pressure. So I suppose outside of, I guess, that relationship building, what attributes do you need as a coach to help your athletes be the best divers?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of being a role model. So that's the big one for me. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I don't just mean, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, I don't mean that kind of role model. What I mean is when I come into the gym, I'm moving mats, I'm cleaning the floor, I'm wiping down things, I'm putting all the weights back, putting the benches back. And I think that's not something that I just did that without thinking about it. So in other words, I didn't do it deliberately to try to show them what a coach and what athletes should follow. It was just something I just go ahead and do it because I don't trust that anybody else is going to do it. So being a role model is key. And then just being extremely passionate about what you do. Like when you come every day to just give it your all. And I really mean that, because every day that I have coached Tom, for sure, as well as all my athletes, it's like a pleasure to work. So I come to work feeling, oh my God, I never feel, oh my God, I got to go to work today. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I know that might be hard to believe, but I really don't. I get out of bed every morning at 6 and I'm at the pool an hour before everybody gets there. And that's because I want to be ready. So that's a good attribute for a coach. You got to get there early, make sure everything's ready to go, make sure you have a plan for your day, so that when they come in, there's no doubts or confusion or they don't know what we're doing today. So those are the big ones for me. Most people probably go, well, what about like your technique or your skill level? I've learned that over the years. I wasn't a great coach when I started, but what I did have was, I think I had the right qualities in my person. And then I learned as I sort of went along. And I learned in the Russian system most of my technique, because they're just outstanding technicians. I learned about dry land in the Russian system. I think just trying to be yourself, but also coming with a little bit of structure. Because, you can't just come in every day and just high five and let's have fun. Tom and Matty wouldn't have won a gold medal that way. There were always challenges along the way. And I learned a lot about myself through those challenges. So it takes years and years and years of making a lot of mistakes and then trying to come back the next day and be better. So I think there's not one thing. There's several things that you really have to be passionate about your sport, and then passionate about giving to kids. That's a big one.
Thanks very much, Esther. Linda, you're up next.
Hi, Linda.
Jane. What's coming across quite clearly is what passion you've got and the drive you've got and the energy you're putting into what you do. And I'm just wondering whether you have had periods of burnout and what has recharged your batteries during those periods.
Yeah, that burnout is a big thing for coaches, especially when you're giving it your all. There's been times what recharges my batteries, to be quite honest, is time off, time away, and getting back into a proper balance, life balance, because I'll be completely honest, I don't have that. I I'm all in and I'm 6 days a week. And then I run around on Sunday doing chores, watching some TV, FaceTiming my family around the world. By Monday, yeah, I'm back. I'm going again. So I'm not a big socializer. I don't, it's I think time off. And what I mean by that, like a big block of time, not 2 or 3 weeks. That didn't work for me. So what I'm talking about is I'm on a sabbatical for a year. So most people have said, oh my God, Jane, you're never going to manage a year. But I'm going to do my best to go the whole year and not work. Because I think when I come back, I can easily go 2 more years with no problem. So I wouldn't suggest a whole year. I'm 58 now, so I have that luxury. But there's been times where I took off maybe a summer, 3 months. I did that once. Normally every August I would take 6 weeks off because I usually save all of my vacation time to after the season. So I'm not sure that's good either. And I'll tell you why, because you start to burn out at certain parts of the year. And I think if you had the ability to maybe, even if you took a week off at certain parts of the year, I think that would probably be better. But my job just doesn't allow me to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anna, you had another question.
Yes. Nobody else has any questions. Can I go? I mean, I don't mind. Really, I'm not complaining. So my question is, what basically your next steps are, where your journey is going to lead you, if you can share.
Oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Perfect.
Yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I had already planned to take the year off and come back in August. So Tom also is taking a year off. And then whether he decides to carry on or not doesn't really affect me. But because my assistant coach passed away, I'm now in charge of his athletes who are, 2 of them were at the Olympics. So that's a really special journey that I'd like to be on. But again, coaches, every time there's always something you're going to keep going with. So just when I think, I might take it easy and then something happens and then you're like, okay, this really speaks to me. So I got to keep going. So my plan is to come back in August and coach these guys through to Paris. So we've only got 2 years. And in London, we have probably 2 or 3 medals at stake in our club with our athletes. So, when you think about that, you can't just leave high and dry. You just, I don't know, I probably should, but I just can't. And so my plan is to stay till Paris. And then I turned down a job for British Swimming as a head coach role 2 weeks ago. And that was more of a leadership role. But I just don't see myself yet in that sort of role. I think I have to be done with coaching before I can actually go into leadership. Plus, it's a little bit more boring than being a coach. Coaches, I don't get to be crazy anymore.
Do you think realistically that that's ever going to happen?
In my mind, I'd really like for that to happen. But I think in my heart, it's, look, when your athletes do really well, coach, believe it or not, it's so much fun and you get credit for guiding these guys to amazing, top of the mountain. And I think when you're somebody like a head coach role where there's no coaching, I don't think that that's as exciting. So they want me to do that, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
Very curious to see too. I'll watch you closely.
Yeah, I know. I got my family around the world saying, Jane, oh God, are we never going to get on with something else? And I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, if you're having a good time and it actually doesn't feel like work for you, it doesn't seem like something you should step away from, to be honest.
Yeah, I think how lucky I am, or we are, anybody that loves what they do and just enjoys it. And, you know, those young people keep you young. They keep you young here. They keep you young in your heart. And
because you have to be in their TikToks.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I love coaching these guys. So I don't know. I'm not sure I can see myself doing something else, to be honest.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to hand it over to Carol because she is raising her hands.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, Jane. Pleased to meet you. Really glad to have the opportunity to listen to you. You mentioned that you were coaching other athletes. So you've got, 16 in your group?
Yeah.
I work in high jump, and so I've got, cool. It's one at a time. It's similar to the diving. How do you manage to integrate them all? Do you take them all individually, or do you have them in group sessions?
Well, we have, I have myself, and then I have a couple of other coaches. So when you have 16 athletes, for the last 5 years, I've had 5 just for me. Tom, Matty, Grace, Noah, and Scarlett. And that's quite a lot. So what we do is we split up. So there's 3 of us. I take pretty much the people that I think are the medal contenders, and I work on that journey and try to win the medals. Whereas the other guys, I'm mentoring them, and then they're working with the athletes maybe for the next cycle. So we sort of have a process where my group, actually, believe it or not, is all the boys are the medalists. We're trying to get the women up to where they need to be in contention. But I just think we're a little bit behind. Our men, for some reason, are really top in the world. So we do have more than myself.
Yeah, it's a very similar scenario, albeit at a very much lower level. But you still only have one pool, one diving board, like we have one high jump bed. Do they dive, the 6 that you've got, do they dive one after the other, or do you have just 2 of them?
So diving is a specialized sport. So for example, if I have 2 girls, they're springboard girls. So they'll be on the springboard, right? So you'll have springboard people, and they can pretty much go one after another. And then you have platform people, and that's a separate board. So I can easily coach 5 to 6 people, one after another. So I'll give you an idea. If I'm standing on the deck, I would be like, okay, Grace and Scarlett, go ahead. And then as soon as they dive in, I'll give them a comment, and the guys up there are already getting ready to go. So we can actually fit a lot of people in our pool at one time, probably up to 20. So it's not, it's a little bit different to high jump, where you have, unless you had a training venue where you had multiple high jump pits with bars.
Oh, she'll have to blame Tom for the bad internet. In fact, while we're waiting, hopefully she'll come back. Christine Bloomfield, I don't know, are you there at all, Christine?
Yes, I'm here.
Amazing. I'm so the reason I'm going to bring Christine in while we're waiting for Jane. Jane has been a mentor on the UK sport programme and has been mentoring Christine, who's an athletics coach. Christine, what has it been like to work with Jane this last few months?
Oh, wow. It's been, we've been on a journey together. We're very similar. So it's very, I never thought I would meet anybody that was like me, but we're very similar in a lot of ways. So we started the course in January, I think it was. and I've been at the pool. I mean, it will be good if you could go down and watch her coach. I think it's very insightful, but she may.
Sorry, guys.
We managed to talk about you, Jane, while you were gone. We got Christine in on the conversation.
Oh, we're Christine.
Hello, Jane. But when you go down to see Jane, you have to be prepared to coach. Because when I went down to Jane, I went down to see her divers, and she said, "Oh, just come down, Chris. Just come down and watch, and you can watch them dive, and you can go up on the platforms," which I did, and I was scared, petrified. But then Jane said, before they went on the platforms and they did their diving, Jane said, "Oh, would you like to do some drills?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And in my head, I was like, these are going to the Olympics. I'm not coaching them. And she just was so open and so willing, and she trusted me so much. Remember, we'd only met about 4 times by that time, I think. And she allowed me to coach and give a drill session to her athletes. To Tom, to Matty, and to the girls. It was amazing because they listened to me, and I said, "Oh, it's so good." I said, "Jane, they listened," and she, it was quite a surreal moment, but it was really important because it showed me the kind of person Jane was, and how open she was, and how trusting she was of me, and how much she believed in me. And get all emotional. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but it really did. Kind of like inspire me and motivate me to believe in myself a bit more, because Jane's always saying, "Christine, you got to believe in yourself. You got to own what you do." And she's constantly talking to me about myself and about who I am as a coach, how I want to be, what I, she challenges me on a daily basis, which sometimes I think, Jane, and sometimes, I think, Jane, do I have to? Do you know what I mean? But it's really refreshing because nobody does that, and I find that she's my accountability person, and I think about things now more, because I think I'm gonna have to go and tell Jane, so I better behave myself and do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. And it's not that she'll tell me off, but she makes me accountable, and she makes me think about the decisions I make, the way I coach, how I coach, who I coach, and how much I give to the people that I coach. And we both have a passion for our particular sports, which is really, I've met loads of people in athletics who have a passion, but Jane's passion is unbelievable. And it was really nice that I was able to have that kind of passion, share that passion, Jane's passion, and share my passion of athletics with her. And I think I'm fortunate. I mean, I've told Jane that she's not staying for a year. She's not going away for a year. I've already told her that, and I've already told her that she can go away for Christmas and she's coming back probably 3 months time. We've already had this discussion. So Jane's telling you that she's going to be away for a year, but I'm not going to allow her to be away for a year, because our friendship is really important. Our friendship is really important. But I know that I'm going to go and see her, and she's so willing to. I mean, you got to talk to her. It'll be really good for you guys to go and watch her coach, to spend some time with her. I mean, not too much time, because obviously she's my mentor first. Being a bit selfish now. And she's amazing, and I'm not just saying that because she's there. She's been a source of joy. She's met my kids. Everybody she meets, she sows into their life. She gives all the time. She came down to training. She stood outside on the cold track at New River when we were in COVID, and spent like 4 or 5 hours with me, just watching me coach. So it's not just about her just bleating on about what she does. She actually gave back to so many of my athletes, and she inspired a lot of my athletes and motivated them and made them believe that they could do great things. So she's been, for me, an incredible addition to my support network. But she's more than a support network. She's my friend.
Amazing.
I would like to say that she's my friend. And I said to her when we first met that, this is not just for this this course that we're on. You know, you've got a friend now. We're friends for life now. Do you know that, Jane? And she said, no, of course. And it's been an amazing journey, and we're going to continue on our journey. And I really feel very fortunate that I had, you know, I was given her as my mentor, because I couldn't have wanted for a better person.
Amazing.
Genuine, loving, caring.
And I got a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Oh, you do.
I love you,
Jane. Oh, sorry, I'll stop now.
No, Christine, thank you so much. In fact, it was great timing, Christine, because you helped us fill that gap then. But no, it's really amazing to hear the impact that a mentor has on that coach. So Jane, from your point of view, it doesn't have to be about Christine specifically, but it can be. How nice is it to be, or is it nice to be able to mentor rather than just coaching, to pass on what you know to somebody like Christine? What's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, being a part of that UK sport leadership and meeting Christine and Lisa, you know, I just try to be myself. So obviously, they're two very strong, passionate women, and mentoring is something that it's a way of giving back. So a lot of times coaches don't really know how to give back. And I think mentoring is like one of the most important ways to give back. And I don't think you even have to be successful to do that. You can just being a coach and women helping women, or, you know, women helping men, whatever. I think it's really important, because we've got to share all that knowledge. There's so much knowledge. And I felt like I had to be able to share it. But yeah, it's been amazing. Mentoring, you know, my assistant coach who passed, I mentored him for nearly 8 years. And it's just an incredible thing. You know, he thought I was outrageous at times, and he thought I was stubborn at times. And but I was just trying to tell him that to be the best in your sport is you've got to have this passion that just, you have to give it your all. And mentoring is very, very important. I hope I get to do a lot of that now in my later years of coaching.
Well, Christine sold you very well, so we all want you to be our mentor now.
Okay, well, I invite all of you wonderful women out there to come to the pool. I would actually love to do that. So maybe we can organize that with you.
Absolutely. That would be.
You can bring as many women as you like that are coaches that can come watch a session, and just come and, I mean, you probably, a lot of you would, you know, I've learned so much. I think, Christine, it's important to know that she thinks that she's learned from me, but actually I don't think she realizes how much I've learned from her. And that's been just phenomenal. And I think about her every day when I'm coaching. So bring all those lovely women, and let's throw like a coaching party down at Dive London. And I think it would be awesome.
Jane, you are on. I will email you after this, and we will definitely arrange that. Everyone
will have to be after August, though, Vicky, because Christine thinks I'm coming back in January.
Deal. We will definitely get that arranged. Definitely. Conscious of the time, I'm going to ask you one last question, Jane.
Yep.
You have given us so much insight, so much advice. It has been absolutely phenomenal learning experience. So to put the pressure on you for the one last thing, if you had one golden piece of advice to give everybody here to take away with, what would that be?
I think what I said earlier about just getting up every day and giving it your all for those kids, because actually that's where you get the pleasure. If you just give everything, that all the advice, all the wisdom, give them your just undivided attention, and then most of all, just show them that you're really enjoying what you're doing, and then that's sort of the big piece for me. And you carry on coaching because of that.
Amazing. Jane, thank you so much. It's been an absolute
for having
pleasure.
Me. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, no worries. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.